Hello, poor people. How are you today? One of the reasons you're unsatisfied with your current level of life today is not necessarily as a consequence of finances or lack of reputation or achievement, things that you would logically attribute your depression to. Is far from it. You are depressed, you feel inadequate, you feel poor, not just financially, but in all of its ramifications, because you fear yourself. You fear being yourself. The fear of being yourself is the desire, or not the desire, the detesting of accepting your uniqueness, the peculiarities, the various things that makes you an individual. That's what you're scared of, because accepting those qualities would disenfranchise you from society, and humans have been conditioned to somehow believe being alone is something you should fix. It's a default or it's a deficiency, something you should fix and address. It's most likely the problem is you. I had a very interesting preacher at the infancy of my career during my lonely path when I decided to become a success, therefore costing me my current relationship. He said, if everybody's wrong, it's most likely you are the problem. It's your lens of perception. And I took it to heart. I said, the reason I don't have friends has something to do with me. And I was right. However, the only problem with that situation is for good reason. Because friendship or any kind of relationship is built upon shared habits. And when the individuals involved no longer sustain the parties, no longer sustain the behavior that is common, the split. This has nothing to do with love or hate or closure. It is as objective as the law of gravity. I used to have this friend. We bonded over video games. And as we grew, we became tighter and tighter. We would look forward to the holidays because then our parents would bring out the console. However, something very interesting happened. As we grew and matured into adults, we dissolved all communications. I would try and reach out. He was always busy. And at the end of it all, I just stopped reaching out. But the point still remains consistent that for as long as there was no video game or the desire to play video games, there was no relationship. So it's the same thing with you. Once you've decided to become successful, decided to ignore the parties, the friends, the women, drugs, alcohol, all of this rubbish, it goes. So you fear being yourself because it would cost you friends, it would cost you current relationship. Unfortunately, you feel the sting in the short term because although you've changed, you're not developed enough to attract the kind of friends relative to your mindset. It's most likely once you decide to do something with your life, you're coming from a place of anxiety, depression, all kinds of problems. So you're the individual who needs help. And if you know something about any kind of successful relationship, it is not equally beneficial, it's mutually beneficial. In that state, you have nothing to offer the kind of person you want to be friends with. Therefore, loneliness being alone, building skills, value systems, character. There's a requisite level of mindset that transports you from the lower echelons of life to the opposite. So God bringing those kind of friends to you would be a curse, because it's most likely you're coming from a place of backbiting, gossiping. In 2 days of connection, you said something erroneous about the other guy, and the other guy told this guy. Finally, they oust you out of the friendship. It's not something you want. So, being alone becomes a prerequisite to success. It's in that loneliness you find yourself, ability to accept yourself, accept your uniqueness, the queer associated with you. The world rewards uniqueness, not impersonators. The world rewards unique individual, not copycats. There are boxers today who try and steal lines or the fighting style of the legend Muhammad Ali. But something about it is just wrong. You're copying. There's nothing new. We do not attribute the same love to you. This is a charade. You're trying to deceive us. They might not be able to articulate it as well as I, but this is the underlying psychology behind that resonance. They do not embrace you fully because you're a copycat. So for as long as you try to impersonate, there's no award for you. You know why? Nobody claps twice for the same thing. That's why I've learned to laugh inwardly anytime my father tries to regurgitate my achievements. I said to him, if I need applause, I'll do something new. There are young men who talk about past achievements as though they are 60. No, it's not a championship formula. Minimize talking about past achievements. Talk about what you're excited. What next? Even Paul said it. I count not myself to have apprehended, but these things I do, forgetting that which is behind and looking. It didn't say forgetting the bad things or good things. It's not a moral argument. Anything which are behind. I press towards new things. So the second reason people fear being themselves is public opinion. If I start this business, my friends would see me. If I start this channel, if I start learning how to trade, my friends would see me. And because you suck at the beginning, as you would at anything, it is painful, it is humiliating. They have ample reason to laugh at your beginnings. I've shared the story when I was learning how to trade stocks and learning about the stock market. I sat on the floor to understand the market. I read books on the floor in an environment where there was no electricity. I had no advantage, nothing whatsoever. Yet, that's the kind of situation that birthed thousands of dollars in profit. There are people today with relatively no achievement, no desire to do something, no progress, and at the slightest hint of resistance, they've stopped. But when you hear the story that a man came from no opportunity, no community, in a place where there's no light, friends and antagonism, he became the object of ridicule, sat on the floor to learn the market. All of these problems challenged and plagued this man, and yet somehow he became victorious. What did you struggle with? You said I'm stupid and you want to become successful. You tear up because someone called you stupid and you expect to run $1 billion conglomerate. The only way that dream will come to fruition is in your dreams. Public opinion. For as long as you fear public opinion, there's no rising for you. As long as you still hinge your self-worth on external outcome. In fact, the secret to confidence is to erode your worth on external outcome. Perhaps I'll do a separate video on that and would go extensively on what it means to be confident. But one of the primary reasons you do not take risk, you do not approach the girl, you might give excuses like, oh, she's in the midst of her friends. Oh, I'm not properly dressed. There are 1,001 excuses you can spur to support your inaction. But one thing remains consistent is your fear of public opinion. Your fear of public opinion. When she says no in the midst of hundreds of people, it's embarrassing in the beginning, and you replay that moment. But guess what happens? Once people leave, they forget about it. And what if she do accept? You'll be happy, right? But you're never going to know. I've spoken extensively on the different kind of errors, which is error of omission and error of commission. Error of commission is the pain associated with failure, what you feel when you fail. Error of omission is the pain associated with inaction. This is a component of regret. Regret. What if? What if? What if I had done this, would the outcome have been different? People are more concerned with the error of commission because you feel the sting very quickly, as opposed to the error of commission, which is a more longer approach, an eternal approach towards life and destiny. Everything happens subconsciously. What you do now, you would always remember in the process of repeating that action. Once your mind has seen you're the kind of person who breaks promises to yourself, you approach that, you wanted to approach that lady, but you convinced yourself out of action. Once all those experiences accumulate is what leads to things like timidity, lack of confidence, lack of belief, causing that individual to look for a one-time solution like a motivational video, something external, going to the gym, getting new clothes, whereas unknown to him, his problem is deeper than he thinks. So the timidity has piled up. It's a consequence of previous seasons of inaction. Take this test. Once you see a beautiful lady, don't think about it. Walk up to her and say, hello, I think you're pretty. Oh, thank you. That's all I wanted to say. Then leave. If you have nothing else to say, I guarantee you, your mind will record that shit. That action repeated over time is done. In fact, what kind of life would you live where your confidence is placed on external outcome? So if she says yes, you feel happy. If she says no, it's an attack on your masculinity, or something is wrong with you. That one no can erode decades of yes. It's a stupid bargain. It is vastly disproportional. There's no way you can logically assume that equation. So public opinion. Disregard this idea of public opinion. Stop caring. Like I said, how you do the small things is how you do the big things. If you are faithful in little, you are faithful in large. If you care about public opinion, you can never, ever become successful. And even some way you magically become successful, it creates another cycle of depression, or it propels you to spend a lot on external validation. There are a lot of timid guys who hide behind luxury cars and items and watches. Those are the kind of individuals who desperately want to show off their wealth and show off this and sell this narrative of being a tough guy, of being mafia, those kind of things. But if you are something, you don't need to tell us. You exude it. Do I need to tell you I'm tall before you know? Exactly. It doesn't cross my mind. I don't need to obsess over the idea of what clothes do I need to put on to show people I'm tall. No, it's not something I consider. It's a consciousness. Therefore, I act accordingly. Public opinion. For as long as you still place priority on what people think, the public opinions, what they would say. I started a new channel and I'm keeping it a secret because if my friends find out I'm locking in, I'm doing something productive, they would laugh. Guess what? People are not laughing, not necessarily because they find it funny, because they are trying to get you to stop, because your effort is a direct reflection of their laziness. It's a different feeling when someone you know becomes successful, someone you have some kind of proxy with becomes successful. It holds a mirror to your standards. That success is not necessarily as a consequence of a bright background. You slept with this person on the same bed. Perhaps you had dinner together. And now you're successful. What's your excuse? You now know why individuals take it upon themselves to ensure you fail. You see, the antagonism is beyond you. It's beyond fighting your success. It's fighting their self-worth. It's fighting for their own interest. Public opinion. Public opinion. I recall declining a lot of parties, a lot of events, social gatherings. I was called weird. At the end of the day, what's the difference? I've generated tens of thousands of dollars in profits. There's a difference between generating an amount in capital and in profits. It means it's yours. You get to spend it without the business noticing. If you spend your capital as well as profits, or if you mistake capital for profits, it's not very wise. It's a stupid venture. That's the difference. Public opinion. Also, people fear being themselves because of uncertainty. Uncertainty. When you're unique, you are indeed different. The actions exuded have not been taken before. Therefore, the outcome becomes unknown. This can put a lot of pressure, uncertainty. It's difficult to keep going or to even embrace that kind of lifestyle because you have no idea if you're articulate, if you're intelligent. How would this girl who's local and used to guys using slangs and coining all kinds of things to communicate a point, How would she respond to you? Oh, I'm a very smart man. If I come to a group, usually mediocres, how would they respond? The solution? Conform. Unfortunately, when you take that route, you trade external conflict for internal conflict, because you would go home, you would feel bad, something would be wrong, you would not feel like yourself. Everything becomes awry as a consequence of that decision. And anytime you practice what you just relinquished, that joy, you feel it, it comes alive. When you conform, it disappears. Some of you might not be able to relate, but individuals who have done something with their life or are currently doing something, or are in this phase I just described, would nod their head in affirmation. The best thing to do, accept the loneliness, disregard any kind of relationship that isn't profitable. Why would you want to be in that kind of relationship? For comfort. And you want to be successful? It's stupid. And as I said in the previous recording, if you wait for a hero of yours to lay the foundation work or decide what is and is not acceptable, you will cap your potential and you would never be rewarded for your true worth, because it isn't identified in the first place. So if you wait for someone to say something, watch how the audience reacts, or to share an opinion, to exude some kind of trait before you follow in his footsteps, or before you believe it's possible, then you're going nowhere. Chances are excellent, as an intelligent man, you've gotten to a point where someone does something. I thought of it. That's what I would have done. Or this is my philosophy on XYZ. But you suppress that philosophy. Why? Because of conformity. Because you had no idea, uncertainty, what would they say? Is this acceptable? You had no idea. And where has that led you? Right back to me. Disregard conformity, uncertainty, take action, irregardless, and you'll be fine. The structure of this teaching is deliberate. You notice how I put public opinion above uncertainty, because when you do not care about public opinion, by extension, you don't care about the uncertainty, because the uncertainty still ties back to external validation. What would they think? What would they think? How would they react? What is their thought? So once you disregard public opinion, it would solve a lot of problems. In fact, as I'm recording now, in a very tiny apartment, this is not my usual studio. Very tiny apartment, small neighborhood. I have the locals listening to what I say. Chances are excellent, once I leave, my cover has been blown. Every single person now knows who I am and my philosophy. So I'm at the risk here, yet I do not give a fuck. I don't care. That's how it works. Ignore public opinion, uncertainty, and you'll be fine. As always, my friends, a pleasure speaking to you. See you in the next one.